it's just
I hear you.
whatever.
We'll do it when we can, right?
Exactly. Been a good week for you?
Pretty good. A little busier than I would like. Trying to slow my life down a little bit. It's going all right. How about you?
Trying to speed my life up a little bit, so on the other side of the hill.
All right, I'll trade you. I spent 3.5 years going way hard, and it was very rewarding, but I need to slow down now.
Yeah, I'm just coming out of a phase like that. I slowed down significantly. So.
Right. Well, kudos to the self-awareness to know about pace. I like that.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's certainly beneficial.
I agree.
How long have you been using TaskWarrior?
It's a good question. Maybe since 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was when I switched from OS X.
Mm.
And I would have to, I mean, honestly, the most accurate assessment of that would probably be when did the Vim 2.x branch happen, and then just rewind that by about 5 months, and that's about how long I've been using it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so long that I can't, it feels like it's been my, it's my life now, right? I mean, it's Command Central,
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And it's nice to have command. So something like productivity management seems so essential to our modern life that having such a personal connection with my personal management system, like I've so thoroughly customized it and written my own software on top of it that it just seems like it's like totally the right way to approach it, instead of like taking a piece of stock software off the shelf, which is never gonna completely align with who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
Totally.
Yeah, and then you're constantly frustrated, not able to like get the workflows that you want, and it's just so much nicer to do the extra. To me, it was a lot of extra work, but it's been worth it. So, to me, TaskWarrior and the tools I built on top of it, they're like a partner that I have. It's not just this thing I got to use. It's literally like a partnership. It's cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. When I was writing the book, it was difficult to choose one way of doing things because TaskWarrior is so flexible.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it with any kind of methodology. So,
yes, agreed.
Dustin, good morning.
Hi. Is it very noisy from my mic, or is this okay?
No, not that I'm hearing anyway.
There's a bonspiel going on, and I'm trying to sit in a quiet corner, so hopefully it's not too bad.
I've never been to a bonspiel with a quiet corner before.
No, well, it's a men's bonspiel, and I'm right next to the women's locker room, so that's how I pulled it up.
That would do it. Is it far from home, or are you in town?
This curling club is literally a block away from me. It's pretty sweet.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's sweet. So I don't know how many other people will join us, but Dustin, I think you should go first and do your piece, and then whatever conversation comes out of that, and then we'll have Chad finish up. I think he may be more than 15 minutes. So
I'm gonna try. I did think about it. I'll do my best to keep it in 15.
No worries.
Well, I was hoping either Linux Cafe or Tomas would be here. Tomas, sorry. I'd like to talk to or hear from both of them. Is it David or Daniel? DJP is the Linux Cafe. I'm forgetting his
David, I think.
Yeah, okay. Would like to talk to him about how to manage the 2.6 ongoing process. And was hoping to hear from Tomas. He seems to be getting back involved, and just hoping to hear from him about what he's thinking about, basically. So I'm just on my phone here, but I can talk about. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I can talk a little bit about what's gone on over the last week. Well, it's 2 weeks rather. I can do this on my phone. There we go. Okay. So I've, like we talked about last week, I've pivoted to working on the sync server, and I've refactored it a little bit, which is kind of invisible, and then I've added the ability to make an allow list for client IDs. So if you're setting this up as a personal server, you can have it just serve your client ID and not let other people randomly upload their tasks to your server. And then we're talking about how to make kind of a turnkey or relatively easy way to set this up with TLS on like a Docker image or VPS or something like that, so that people can just sort of follow these 5 easy steps and then have a task server running on a Linode or whatever server vendor they want. So that's kind of the goal there, is just to get that into a better shape for people individually to use. And the refactor opens it up a little bit more toward building this into a larger web app if you wanted to make in the AM version 2 or freesync.com version 2. It'd be a little easier now. Let's see, just skimming through the list here. These were updated months ago. Yeah, okay. This isn't showing me the actual last 2 weeks like it does on my desktop. So, yeah, so heading toward a new Task Champion sync server release, probably not heading toward a new TaskWarrior or Task Champion release. And I haven't heard a lot of feedback on the latest TaskWarrior release, the 3.2 release, positive or negative. So I guess that's going to be fine. But that's I think the status over the last 2 weeks, and I apologize for the things that I've left out because they're not on my screen right now. Oh, there's been some interest in color and themes from I think the username spells Dennis. Just in figuring out a way to kind of have a better sort of array of themes for TaskWarrior, and maybe a better way to showcase those, whether that's on the website or where. It'd be kind of cool to have the ability to get people to choose themes and create new themes, stuff like that. It feels like there's a lot of interest around that, so we should encourage it. Hey, Tomas, how you doing?
Hello.
So I think that's it for me. Questions, other things we want to talk about?
Is 2.6 still being maintained at all? Like backport bug fixes and things like that, or is it pretty much dead?
So I've said for quite a while that I would be happy to have someone do that. And I think Linux Cafe is willing to do so, but probably needs some technical assistance with that. I think the last comment he made said I'm not a real dev, so I won't put that in my words, but his. I think he's going to need some assistance in making that be effective. And it's really very low priority for me, so I'd rather not be the one assisting him with that.
Mm-hmm.
If there's permissions and stuff that I can do, I'm happy to help with that, but I don't want to make the patches and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we're at with that. That's a great project. There's at least one person interested, probably more than one, and maybe we can make something out of that and ship a 2.6.3 release. Maybe we can backport some things from the 3x release. I know there's been some bug fixes that aren't related to the storage backend, so finding those and backporting would be great. And possibly we can forward port some changes. The one tricky bit there is we did kind of run a formatter over all the source code at some point in the 3 series a couple months ago. So textually, the diffs are going to be really annoying. But if we find a bug in 3 and the 2.6 folks want to fix it. I'm sure it'll be relatively straightforward to figure out how to apply that. Just Git isn't going to do it very nicely. And similarly, if we want to forward port something, we can sort of conceptually, semantically see what was done, do the same in the new branch, even if the text. So yeah, that's where that's at right now.
Cool. I would think AI can help with the formatting changes.
Yeah, probably. I don't use a whole lot of AI coding assistants, so I don't know how well it would do with sort of undoing that. But yeah, quite possibly. That'd be cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Tomas, did you have an update, a developer update for us?
Not really. Didn't make much progress regarding TimeWarrior. I somehow got stuck with some infrastructure tasks. So there was this TaskWarrior Docker image that was somehow broken, which is more or less created with every push to the development branch, which was yeah. So the intention for these images was that to have an image for the TaskWarrior TimeWarrior hook. So there is a similar action on the TimeWarrior side. So we have two images, one for TaskWarrior, one for TimeWarrior, and then hook action creates a combined image of two and can then run end-to-end tests on them. And yeah, somehow discovered that for a very, very long time, these weren't working on TaskWarrior at all because of permissions. But yeah, so fixed that and also got then stuck with some other infrastructure because then I saw, haven't taken a look a long time on the hook repository. There were also some runners going out of date and such and such. So doing some stuff, but mostly here and there patching up things and cleaning up and not necessarily implementing new features, fortunately. Was this understandable? I'm currently walking I'm on my way home. I'm not quite sure how the connection is.
It was fine.
No,
It's okay.
came
Good.
fine. Thank you. That sounds like you're making progress slowly but surely.
Let's hope so. Maybe one thing when I saw this TaskWarrior Docker image, and we had this recent discussion. I think it was with TaskWarrior TUI, who were asking about something similar. So from what I got there was that they are using or creating more or less also a TaskWarrior image to run their tests on. How feasible it would be to let them also use those images. I mean, they are created anyway. But yeah, on the other hand, they more or less have already implemented their own solution with the cached installation of the recent TaskWarrior. So just a thought.
Yeah. And I think they only really needed release versions of TaskWarrior. So probably what they've done is relatively sufficient, and there are probably even easier things than what they've done. So maybe not necessary in that case.
Yep. I'm also not quite sure how. I haven't dug into this, but I think there may be also some permission, problems or challenges to set it up so that people outside the organization can use them. On the other hand, I think the risk of disclosing anything sensitive should not be that high, I guess. But yeah, it's always something you have to consider when you make something public.
Thomas, did you see the discussion about colors and themes and possibly updating the docs to use, I think it's xterm.js to render different themes?
Yeah, I've seen this discussion. So we have, I think the pull requests that were merged regarding the changes to libshared. So I think there's bold and full color support. I think one thing that has to be done now is, if not already done, upgrading libshared. And yeah, of course, it should be reflected in the documentation, but yeah, somebody has to write it.
I think that was a different topic than I was talking about.
Okay.
But thank you for bringing that up. I did forget to mention that we had a few changes in libshared, and that has been updated in TaskWarrior.
Then maybe 3.2. Then I may not be up to date with that. What was this about?
So in discussions about TaskWarrior themes and making that, since there seems to be interest there, making that more accessible, trying to replace the current documentation page about themes, which just has a bunch of screenshots that I think are a little bit old, with some more dynamic JavaScript rendering of different themes, and maybe sort of a more interactive, like clicking different themes and it appears in a terminal window there.
So something like you can select different themes and then already see how it is done.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be an interesting sort of JavaScript project for someone to work on. If they want to play with a library, a front-end library like that, and make something cool looking.
Yeah, sure, why not? So, but yeah, they have to. The one thing is, okay, it can be done surely, because we have the tools page with also some more or less standalone page in our so the whole web page runs on Hugo, so you more or less have to integrate it into that for that. So putting dynamic stuff into some static site generation, but yeah, if somebody is up to that, I guess we can just open an issue, describe it enough, and then have somebody a shot at that.
Cool. Yeah.
And so
another good first bug opportunity with a different kind of development.
First feature,
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, somehow Matt is no longer here, I guess, or I haven't reached him, and so support for the pages is more or less, or in general, the page maintenance, has more or less fallen back to us.
Yeah.
Again. So in general, I think if somebody's out there want to play around with Hugo templates and in general improving documentation, even with things like, hey, it would be nice or better documentation if you have some, can play around with the themes and have a preview of them. Yeah, but I guess cool. Somebody has to do that.
Have you tried reaching out to Matt?
I have messaged him once recently, recently some weeks ago, and hasn't responded yet.
Okay, maybe I'll try as well.
A bit unsure what he's up to, what he's doing right now. So I hope he has not been hit by a bus.
I do too.
Because
let's all hope that.
Because normally we agreed on that if he wanted to leave, that he at least gives a heads up before that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Tomasz or Paul Beckenham haven't shown up yet here.
Right. Yeah, I was hoping to see either or both of them.
Okay.
Chad, just to loop back, did you want to help out with that 2.6 work?
I mean, I probably have the skill set to do that, but not the time.
Okay.
I would say I even have the skill set and some interest, but I would be an idiot to take on another software project. So
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm gonna have to rely on somebody else who has a whole
Okay.
schedule. Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if I had unlimited time, I could say yes, but that we all know it's not reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is this a good time to turn the mic over to Chad? I get no objections.
Okay.
I get a thumbs up. All right. Chad is, in my opinion, something of a hero in the TaskWarrior community because he built and maintains the Vit software, which sits on top of TaskWarrior, and I use it just constantly. And so for me, this is super important to hear from him about how he thinks about and uses TaskWarrior. So Chad, please take it away.
Thank you. I want to give credit where credit is due and simply extend what you're saying to say that I was not the original creator of it. It was as much older than the software I have. It was originally Perl script that kind of sat on top of the interface, and it was how I got started, and eventually ended up rewriting the whole thing from the ground up in Python, and just to make it a little more modern and flexible. So it's got long roots, right? I don't want to take full credit for that. That was a 5-month project, by the way. I mean, I literally took off work for 5 months to write it, but it was worth it. It was totally worth it. Okay, so I use TaskWarrior with David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology, which I'm guessing nobody here has to have a tutorial on, and there's plenty of places to find information about that. And I'm guessing there's probably plenty of places to find information about how to use TaskWarrior with Getting Things Done. So I don't really want to talk about any of that. I figured it would be more productive to just show you a couple of the tools that I maintain that help me be able to implement that methodology with TaskWarrior. And the other piece of context I would need to add is that it's been a long time now, probably at least 6 years, I migrated from Mac to Linux. And that process was largely painless with the exception of one piece of software. And that was my task management software, which at the time was OmniFocus, which to this day I still have fond memories of. I just loved that piece of software. I had all the keyboard shortcuts memorized, and it was extremely painful when I had to give it up and couldn't use it on Linux. And that, of course, started my long hunt for what is going to replace it. And when I found TaskWarrior, I was like, oh man, this is almost perfect. There's just a couple of things that it doesn't do that I really need, and I couldn't find them. So Vit was one, and the other one is one of the thing I'll show you guys first. So the biggest thing that was missing, and still is in TaskWarrior, in my opinion, in terms of being able to, for me to make practical use of it, is a way to easily put notes on tasks. Now, I know you can use annotations, but I've actually found them to be fairly clunky in terms of being able to manage notes on tasks. And I need, I'll have something I need to do, but then I may have a phone call with somebody and to take a bunch of notes, just have a bunch of related information. So I need a place to do that. I'm a command line junkie. I use Vim or Vim clones all the time, and I want to be able to use that natively. So I ended up writing. Let me see. It probably would be a good time to do a quick screen share here, just to show you guys the project slide right there. I think that's it. Yeah. So I ended up writing this piece of software called OneNote. Let me scroll down. I guess you guys could, if anyone wants to read that, or I'll just talk about it a little bit. So OneNote solves the problem of not being able to take more involved notes in TaskWarrior by storing and managing those notes on a UDA on the task. Now, there are other ways you can manage notes, but all the ones I found at the time were using separate systems where you had to, and then, which meant it wasn't all stored in one place. You had synchronization of that second system to worry about. And this just seemed like a very elegant way to be able to take notes, associate them with a task, have them synchronize automatically between all my devices, and have the notes themselves appear inside my native editor, which made them really easy to work with. So I think maybe we can put the link for this somewhere if people are interested in it, because there's some setup you have to do, and there's other features that are a little bit too detailed to talk about right now. Yeah. How do you stop sharing? Just do that. There we go. Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, if we can put a link up to that, just if anybody's interested in actually using it. And then I thought I'd just show you guys a little bit about how this thing works and what makes it so cool to use. So, okay, that's awesome. So you can see I've got a task up, just straight up from the command line, and I've got OneNote installed. So if I do OneNote for that task ID, it pops open my editor, and I'm just going to throw in a little bit of example content that I had ready to go. So that's some markdown, and this is opening in my default editor, which is NeoVim, which means I can do that probably, or is it? There we go. Yeah, so I can get syntax highlighting on the notes. You can see at the top here I've got a mode line, which if you know anything about Vim, that lets it automatically do that kind of syntax highlighting. So if I close it, you're going to see if I re-display my task, I've got the notes on there in a notes UDA, and it's also added a annotation that says there are notes on this task, which is actually pretty handy to have in reports. And then if I go look at it again, you can see because of the mode line, I've got syntax highlighting, I've got all my Vim editing stuff that I'm totally used to be able to work with this text. So it's great. And then when it syncs, of course, it's just a UDA on a task and everything syncs and works fine. So that's essentially OneNote. I mean, the other thing that's kind of cool about it is that if I go over here to Vit, this is my installation of Vit. So you can see here anything with an N by it, that's that note annotation that's detected. And Vit has this concept called markers that allows you to put a little just indicator about some metadata that might be on a task. So anything with an N has a note, and I've set my keyboard shortcuts up to be able to open that O right there means open OneNote with that particular current task UUID. So that's just a little script to hook to the O key. So I can just hit O, and boom, I've got my notes for that task, and then I can edit them and save them. So yeah, that's essentially OneNote. There's a little bit of setup, like I said. It's a batch script that has some hooks that are written in Python to be able to manage those annotations. So I can answer questions. We can talk a little bit about Vit. That actually went faster than I thought it would. How do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm curious about the display in the Vit that you showcased, where I'm assuming the tree hierarchy is the visualization of the dependency tree.
You mean here in Vit?
Yeah. Is that like it may have
and the very last thing I showed you? Let me see if I can pop that back up.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this the one you're talking about here?
Yes. So this is something that I kind of had to face in TaskWiki, which is maybe another one that you might have heard of. Is like a Vim inline task kind of viewer.
Yep.
And one of the problems in TaskWarrior is that the dependencies can be actually, they don't have to be a tree. They can be circular dependencies. How do you deal with that? How do you visualize?
Yeah, that's actually not what you're seeing here with the arrows and the the kind of the hierarchy. That's project hierarchy. That is not dependency hierarchy. I'm trying to remember. Vit, like TaskWarrior, is big. I mean, I implemented all the original functionality, and then I implemented a bunch of stuff I wanted to put on top of it. And so there comes a certain point where it's like I got to look in the code to see what's there. But I don't think I did much with the dependency stuff beyond what was natively supported in terms of like being able to show metadata or whatever. I haven't really done any graphing stuff. Like as Wesley mentioned, like TaskWarrior is so huge. I don't think I've ever used dependencies or waiting and start and end times. It's just like 40% of the features I don't use. I'm really much more about the speed of the CLI interface and to be able to use the projects and tags and stuff like that. And maybe it's just because the way my life works, I manage what little dependencies I have in some other way. It's not like I don't have any kind of dependent tasks, but it doesn't seem to hold up the workflow too much to not manage that. Yeah, I mean that's one of the great things about the notes. I'm trying to think if there's somewhere I can show you guys. So like this is my list of projects, and trying to think where I might have one. Is this one? No, that's not one. Anyways, but inside the notes, I can just keep a running list of the order. Like this is a project, right? Like my voicemail analyzer is a project, or my operator transcriptions is a project. And inside here, I can have a full-on, like, this is what you do next, this is what you do next. And then I have a keyboard shortcut that enables me to promote one of those tasks from that note into its own task. So I kind of have that approach. That's sort of, that's not totally dependencies, but it's sort of like a way to manage my ordering in a fairly straightforward way inside of my notes. That's kind of, I guess that's when I have or sequential stuff I need to keep track of. It usually happens within notes. And I don't actually have a lot of. It's not like I have one project where there's a thing that's blocking another project. That just doesn't. That's not how my life works. You know, it's more like this. I got to do this thing in this project, and then I got to do this thing. That happens a lot more. So I tend to, yeah, that's how I tend to manage the dependencies. But I do like the project hierarchy display stuff. It makes it easier on the eyes to look at it.
How is this implemented under the hood? Like, is the path to the node its own UDA, or how do you start the link?
For the notes?
Yeah.
Then the notes are stored in a UDA field on the task. So when let me see if I can share again. Sorry. There's a few things. Let me button them up right here. Oops, did I mess that up? No, there we go. Okay, here we go. So you can see that one of the things Vit does is when you assign key presses, it has certain meta tags or whatever you can put in. So you can pass the current task's UUID to your script, right? Just because you use this little placeholder there, and when it calls OneNote, it calls with that task. So then OneNote knows, oh, this is the task I'm gonna put my UDA, edit my UDA, or put a new, add data or whatever onto, and then in turn, OneNote exposes that task UUID as an environment variable, which allows me to do that reverse thing I talked about, where when I'm in OneNote, I can do another keyboard shortcut that takes the current line and turns it into a task. That way it can look at, when it has the task UUID, it can look at the associated project and put it under the same project and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I mostly manage it through argument passing and environment variables, right? That's, I guess, is what I'm saying for that thing. Yep, I love it. I mean, it was when after I wrote this, I was still using the old version of Vit, and I was like, I'm good. Like, I was good for a while until the older version of Vit. I started just running into the edges of it because it really was not ground up. Like the old Vit didn't load the JSON of task. It just literally read the output of the task command and then parsed it as a text string and turned it into curses or whatever. It was crazy what it did. I mean, it did a lot with that kind of crazy approach, but it had its limitations, of course. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I should just mention too, just to talk about Vit for a minute, like this ability to map, Vit leaves some keys open, in the key mapping. There's plenty of stuff in here that Vit has by default. I think this would show you. There's a lot of, it's very Vit is VI for TaskWarrior, right? So it's very VI oriented, although you can completely remap all these keys if you want to. But just going through the list, there's 4 or 5 single key presses that are not mapped, and then you can do double key presses to do things. And so over here in my config, I have, I just try to I make it efficient. Like the reports I use every day are single key presses. Some of the other ones I use a little less are just 2 keys. So if I'm here and I want to switch between, that's my inbox, that's my high priority task, these are my scheduled tasks. These are my areas of responsibility. This is my project list. These are my upcoming tasks. I mean, it's just like lightning fast when you map them to single or 1 or 2 key presses, right? Mm-hmm. And then that becomes muscle memory. I'm like literally, I start to feel like a fighter pilot in there, just moving around. It's happening almost faster than my eyes can track it. It's very cool.
Cool. I agree. So how does this sync? Do you use multiple machines, or are you primarily running on a single workstation?
Well, this I still run TaskWarrior 2.6 because it's working fine for me, and I have my own task sync, whatever, the original task sync server, which for my implementation has been pretty reliable. And this is It's here, and it took me a while to figure out, but I think it's called Termux on my Android phone. And it runs a full installation of TaskWarrior, and I even was able to set up OneNote on it, and so I basically on my phone have the exact same setup. When you're using terminal on a phone, it's a little small, but like the trade-off was to be able to use the exact same workflow on my phone with all the keyboard shortcuts and everything I know as I have on my desktop is like totally worth having to read small text. It's awesome. That was so good when I finally figured all that out.
Except the muscle memory doesn't really work with that
stuff. No, because you're correct. I agree with you. It's definitely slower, but everything is kind of smaller and slower on the phone. But I mean that the options for being able to synchronize tasks in TaskWarrior on an Android phone are not good. They're not good. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things I kind of wished over the years we had a better solution for. I tried all the attempts that people had, and as you're saying, I've never really gotten used to using any of them.
Nope.
But hopefully something that can improve in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough transformation because to me, ultimately, TaskWarrior is so great because of the whole muscle memory thing we're talking about, and because when you have a keyboard and a regular monitor, you're just so efficient with it, and you're never going to be able to fully translate that to the phone. I mean, there's an original TaskWarrior, regular app that was put out in 2016 or something, and until it stopped working, I can't remember why it stopped working. It just wouldn't work anymore. It was like emergency use, I can add a task to my inbox with this, or I can look at my reports, but I couldn't really do anything productive. It was just it did the few things I needed while I was out to be able to just basically track information. But now, with the full TaskWarrior installation, it's slow. I totally agree with you. But I can literally do anything I would be doing on my computer, just slower. Yeah. And it's because I just didn't give up the command line interface, right? It's all there.
Yeah. I think the surface of TaskWarrior is so large, as you said. You only use, let's say, 40 or 60% of it, and I don't think that's a very uncommon user situation to find yourself in. I think everyone finds some 40%, except everyone uses a different 40%. So,
I mean, does anybody use all that's in TaskWarrior? I can't even imagine. There's just so much in there.
I mean, I like to think that I know all of it. I read the man page, from the beginning to the end multiple times, just to make sure I understand all the features and implications that we are fixing bugs and improving things. But I would say very large number of user feature suggestions or just questions can be answered by oh, did you know you can use this feature X to do what you're actually asking for?
Yes.
In some creative way. So
that kind of makes me think about documentation in TaskWarrior, how you would take it to the next level. So in LangChain, now they just have an AI chatbot on the front that does RAG and answers questions. So I wonder what the next iteration, just because of what you're saying, there's probably 80% of the support requests are we do that already. You just didn't read the RTFM, Yeah.
I think there was someone recently who posted in the discussions forum that they did create a custom GPT for TaskWarrior. Haven't tried it myself, but noticed that was a thing. So perhaps at some point we could have an official chat on our website, or just Top 7. Are you having trouble with TaskWarrior? I'm here to help. And
I find that Perplexity has already got all the documents and access to them because they're all public. And every question that I ask it, it comes back with a terrific answer. So,
it is the new Swiss Army knife, isn't it? It's so awesome how that. Yeah, no, I use it probably 4 times more than Google now. It's on the daily. It's where I go first. Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps we don't have to do anything, and soon enough, these interfaces will be integrated so much into our lives that this will be a solved problem.
It's a good point. Well, I think I'm done with my presentation unless there's any other questions. That's a pretty good chunk of time.
That was absolutely terrific. Thank you so much for that.
Yep. And can you put the link to the OneNote in the video recording when you post it? Cool.
You bet. I will absolutely do that. Thomas, you've got a huge amount of experience using TaskWarrior. Would you be willing to do one of these demos on how you use it?
I mean, sure, I've done a bunch of these over the years. I think some of them might be already on YouTube, actually.
Oh yeah,
I guess,
I've watched them all.
yeah, I guess it never hurts, so I would be open to it. Would have to find a good date so that I can coordinate all the other responsibilities, but could be fun. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, let's connect on Discord and coordinate that. I think that would be terrific. Cool. Well, that brings us to the official end of the meeting.